Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it with a set of ancient scriptural texts. We're looking at Romans, Luke, and the Psalms. And these texts, well, they dig deep into things like integrity, law, and status.
Yeah, it's a fascinating mix because you've got these huge theological ideas right next to some, frankly, brutal social critique. We see this concept of justification, how righteousness is defined, and then, bam, a sharp look at the people who claim to represent it.
Right. So our mission today is to really unpack that core tension, this idea that righteousness comes through faith as a gift versus the, ever-present danger of hypocrisy, relying on just outward stuff, the works. We want to find the surprising definition of integrity these texts offer.
And, the language itself is pretty intense. If you're not familiar with these sources, brace yourself a bit. You get these stark contrasts, like immense divine mercy shown right alongside a really powerful critique of social structures. It's all pointing towards integrity being something internal, not just for show.
Okay, let's start with that really fundamental shift in Romans chapter 3. This isn't just tweaking an idea, it's like a complete reset. The core claim, and this would have been explosive back then, is that the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law.
Apart from the law. That's the key phrase, isn't it? That's where the friction really starts. For the people first hearing this, the law, well, that was religious identity, that was status, and this text just says, nope, the essential thing, righteousness, it comes through a totally different way now.
And that way is?
Well, the text is crystal clear.
Yeah, it says it's achieved through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe. So it shifts from needing certain actions, certain lineage, to just an inner trust.
Exactly. And the reason, the underlying logic they give, is because even the best attempt at following rules doesn't fix the main issue. And here's where it levels everyone. The text says there's no distinction. All have sinned and are deprived of the glory of God.
Wow. So no distinction. That's the radical equalizer, right? It doesn't matter if you thought you were in or out religiously, spiritually speaking. Everyone starts at zero. If everyone's short, then the fix can't come from human effort.
Precisely. If we're all deprived, as it says, then the only way forward is a gift. That's why justification is received freely by His grace through the redemption. That one line just tears down any human-built system of who's spiritually better.
Which leads to this huge consequence, psychologically, socially. If it's a free gift, the text says boasting is instantly ruled out. What does that actually mean for a religious culture?
Well, it collapses the whole structure of religious one-upmanship, doesn't it? Boasting, that pride in having done something, achieved something others haven't. That's how status works. But if righteousness comes through faith, not works of the law, then what's there to brag about? You can't boast about receiving a gift.
So all those things you might have relied on, maybe specific rituals or dietary rules that marked you as observant, as elite, suddenly they don't matter for this core thing. That must have been a tough pill to swallow for some people.
Oh, absolutely, because those works of the law were often the very things that marked who was in and who was out. So making faith the principle, that's immediately a statement of radical inclusion. And the text doubles down on this, right? It says God isn't just God of the Jews, but also the Gentiles. He'll justify both, the circumcised and the uncircumcised, based on faith.
One God, one way in, and that way is faith. Okay, this sets us up perfectly because if righteousness isn't earned, what happens to people who still think it is or act like it is? They become gatekeepers, and that's exactly who gets called out in Luke 11.
Yeah, that connection is crucial. If you can't earn your standing, maybe the only way to feel superior is to control who else gets access. So we shift from this big theological idea of grace to a really practical and pretty scathing critique of religious leaders who clearly missed that message of access for all.
And this is where it gets sharp, really pointed. We get these woes, these direct accusations. Let's start with the critique of the memorial builders.
Right. Woe to you who build the memorials of the prophets whom your fathers killed. It sounds pious, right? Building monuments. But the text frames it as the ultimate hypocrisy, like spiritual virtue signaling. You honor the dead prophets with fancy stones.
Well, basically carrying on the same spirit of rejection that got them killed in the first place.
Exactly. The text says by doing this, you bear witness and give consent to the deeds of your ancestors. You're dressing up rejection as reverence.
Yeah,
it's quite the accusation.
And it's not just a one-off mistake, is it? The text makes it sound systemic.
It does. It ramps up to say, this generation might be charged with the blood of all the prophets shed since the foundation of the world. From the very beginning, Abel, all the way to Zechariah. It's painting a picture of this long historical pattern of resisting truth, resisting gross messengers.
So the leader's hypocrisy isn't new. It's just the latest version of this ancient problem of, well, spiritual gatekeeping. But then there's that really specific criticism, the one aimed right at the scholars of the law, that feels particularly relevant.
Yes, that specific woe for the experts, the ones who knew the texts, their crime. Taking away the key of knowledge. Just think about that image. Knowledge should open doors, right? But they used it like a lock.
How? What did they do with the key?
Well, the text points to two things. First, they did not enter themselves. They had the map. Maybe they studied the map, drew new maps, but they never actually went on the journey the map showed.
Okay, so they knew it intellectually but didn't live it.
Right. And second, maybe worse, they actively stopped those trying to enter. They used their expertise, their status as the ones who knew, not to help people find the way, but to actually block them.
That's chilling. When expertise becomes a way to keep people out rather than invite them in, using deep understanding not to illuminate, but to, slam the gates shut, protecting their own position.
It's the ultimate warning against intellectual pride becoming a barrier. And you see how threatening this critique was by how the scribes and Pharisees reacted immediately.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, the text says they reacted with hostility, started grilling him, plotting, trying to catch him at something he might say. They didn't argue the point. They went straight into defense mode, trying to shut him down.
Which kind of proves the point, doesn't it? When truth challenges status, the response is often attack, not reflection.
Exactly. It shows their priorities were about protecting their authority, not seeking truth.
Okay, so we've got this incredible grace, justification by faith, no room for boasting, and then this fierce takedown of hypocrisy and gatekeeping. But amidst all this judgment, there's another crucial theme weaving through: mercy.
That's right. The responsorial psalm, Psalm 130, it lands perfectly here. It's like the necessary balance. If you think about it, the reason grace is needed is because, as the psalm asks, if you, O Lord, mark iniquities, Lord, who can stand?
Nobody. That's the implied answer, right?
Right. So the hope isn't in our own record keeping. It's entirely in God. The psalm says, with the Lord there is mercy and fullness of redemption. It admits we can't measure up and shifts the focus from earning to receiving forgiveness.
I love that image in the psalm, too, about waiting.
Oh, the soul waiting for the Lord more than sentinels wait for the dawn.
Yeah. It's such a powerful picture. Sentinels wait through the darkest part of the night, not because they make the sun rise, but because they trust it will rise. It's this deep hope in something you receive, not something you manufacture.
Exactly. And this hope, this redemption, it's tied to truth, which brings in that short, really potent line. I am the way and the truth and the life, says the Lord. It anchors everything in reality, in veracity.
And that truth is the direct opposite of the hypocrisy we saw in Luke, isn't it?
Completely. True faith isn't about those outward honors like building memorials. It's about living according to their message. It's sincerity over ceremony.
The demand seems to be for total authenticity. Like the reflection says, we need to reject hypocrisy and embrace sincerity. The real proof isn't the title or the public show, but seeking justice, mercy, and humility before the Lord.
And remembering that the Lord tests the righteous and the wicked. Integrity isn't just a badge you wear. It's constantly being tested, lived out. The moment we start leaning on our status, our works, our knowledge, well, that's when we risk becoming like those scholars who lock the door.
So bringing this all together for you listening, how does this ancient discussion land today? These sources seem to push us, challenge us with that question. How can you honor God now by living truthfully and acting with integrity in your words and deeds?
Yeah, it's a good check, isn't it? Against, just performing faith or using knowledge to feel superior instead of connecting. That tension is always there. The freedom grace gives has to flow into actual, honest, humble living.
So to wrap up, it feels like two big things really stand out from this deep dive. First, justification, being right with God. It's all about faith. Completely, which means status, works, boasting they're off the table. Second, the biggest spiritual danger maybe isn't from outside, but from inside that hypocrisy where you use your religious position, like being a scholar, to actually hinder others.
The texts really redefine righteousness. It's not about ticking boxes on an endless list of rules. It's about an internal change, something shown in real integrity, real humility. It's the opposite of that pride and pretense Luke calls out so strongly.
So we've got this stark contrast. Passive grace on one hand and active, truthful living on the other. Thinking about the sources we looked at today, here's something to chew on. How do you tell if what you're doing today is genuinely flowing from integrity and humility, or if it's actually just, well, the modern version of building a memorial to polish your own image?
That's the ongoing work, isn't it? Sincerity.
Indeed. We'll leave you with that thought. See you next time for another Deep Dive.